What's up, friends? Welcome into Rock Chalk Sports here on ESPN Kansas City and KansasNation.com with Dan Courtwright. I'm Sean Kellerman. Thanks for joining us here. Busy season indeed. It is opening day for college basketball. We're going to preview KU's opener against Green Bay a little bit later in the show. But to open the show today, we're talking KU football as the Jayhawks won on homecoming, the 113th homecoming for KU football. They took care of business against Oklahoma State 38-21. Break that down for you here in the opening segment. Next segment, we're going to be joined by Kevin Flaherty from the Kansas City Sports Network here in studio. Kevin hosts the Pay Heed podcast and the Verbal Commitment podcast. Great insider for all things. Ask him about KU football, KU basketball, the excitement level for this season, all that good stuff here at Kansas Nation. Going to hear from Lance Leipold, post-game sound after the victory on Saturday. After that, and then we have our Case of the Mondays segment.
That's right.
What a weekend in sports. I mean, it's always great when you have college football going on in the NFL, and everybody loves this season. But we also had Game 7 of the World Series, and it was incredibly epic. Game 7 at that. That's the type of game, Dan, that even if somebody's not a big baseball fan, they could be tuned in and become a big baseball fan because that had everything in it.
You know what sucks is that I was actively rooting against the Dodgers, and I still was... Like, at the end of it, I was like, oh, my God, that was awesome. Like, it just sucks that I had that feeling about the Dodgers. I was like, come on, I wanted the Blue Jays to win, but what a fantastic World Series. I mean, best one in recent history. It's got to be.
Yeah.
It was so electric. Game 7, a couple of extra inning games, and Blue Jays unable to pull it out.
I don't know if I could think of a more ideal scenario than I was finding myself in on
You're hanging out with your sister
Saturday night because I was hanging out with my sister who's one of my best friends. I never get to kick it with her, but it's in Overland Park. It was after KU won. You had the victory for KU football, right? And we're at one of my favorite restaurants. We got World Series Game 7 going on, extra innings. We got USC Nebraska going on. We got Cincinnati Utah, ended up being a blowout actually, but all those games are on. Got nice cold beverage, buffalo chicken sandwich. Are you kidding me?
Man.
I mean, that was an ideal scenario. So I was pretty happy with how my Saturday night turned out.
I was hanging out with the law firm of Lotta Greenstein and Springer.
Wow.
We went out to Louise's and watched the game. It was a lot of fun.
Did you guys get a full hour of hanging out, or did you not quite get to it?
Well, we hung out for about a couple hours. We left after the game, but yeah, no, it was a good time, man. Did you go? By the way, did you go Halloween or?
We did. Yeah, we went
with your daughter.
I did a lot of great stuff this weekend, actually.
What was your costume? Did you stick with the bunny ears?
Stuck with the bunny ears. Nice. But we kept going. My daughter kept going back and forth on what she wanted to be. Ultimately, decided on Elmo, and my wife is, 8 months pregnant, so she was just trying to figure out what she could what she could fit into at this point, and she ends up going as I had those big little hands, the Mickey Mouse hands, so she ended up being Mickey Mouse. So usually we do a family group thing. It just so happened that our family group thing was Elmo, a bunny, and Mickey Mouse.
Sure.
So
I mean,
the law firm.
Yeah, the law firm, right? you say you're Bugs, just classic.
Yeah, I know.
Classic children's characters.
Close enough. Yeah, but
you can spin it.
We had a good time. Everybody in the neighborhood was great. But did you guys have a good Halloween celebration?
Yeah, man. I had actually a funny story. I had a nightmare scenario happen to me on Halloween. So we went to
which is one of the scarier holidays.
It
Halloween.
is.
Yes. Spookiest.
This was my nightmare. So we went over to a friend's house and gave out candy, and then we went over to our friend. Her coworker was having a party out in Eudora, and she was a little bit older. It was kind of an older crowd at this party, but it was still a lot of fun. People were, drinks were flowing, that kind of thing. They're doing karaoke downstairs, and there's probably 20, 25, 30 people in this basement. Everyone's singing karaoke. And I was driving, so I wasn't drinking at all, and I was just kind of hanging out. Somebody tipped them off that I was a stand-up comedian, and they stop everything, and they go, all right, we're going to put a pause on the karaoke, and because we have a stand-up comedian here, get up here and tell some jokes, funny man. And I was like, what is, this is the worst crowd. I'm not prepared. It was just very much like a dance monkey dance kind of thing.
Right.
And so I told 2 quick jokes and I got out of there. It was just a weird.
Good for you for being a team player.
I know. I made him laugh. Yeah. It worked out, but still, it was a nightmare scenario. I was like, what? Why are you doing this to me? This is. Can I just sing karaoke instead?
So now that we talked about Halloween being one of the spookier holidays that there is. Is your Christmas tree up yet?
No.
Is it going to happen soon?
You asked. we had this discussion. We said, when should we put it up?
Uh-huh.
This was on November 1st, and haven't put it up yet, but we have located it. So we know where it is. We will put it up relatively soon, I would imagine. We went to Home Goods to look at Christmas stuff already. Piper's, she's in the Christmas mood, which, by the way, Thanksgiving, also a great holiday. Like,
Yeah,
I don't like how Thanksgiving just constantly gets overlooked.
I know. Thanksgiving's great. I love feast week. That's what I love.
Of course.
I love
Right.
feast week. I mean, the Thanksgiving meal is great, but college basketball, college football, that going on feast week.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Inject that into my veins. We have a lot in our Case of the Monday segment. You're also going to hear from the two-time national champion Bill Self in advance of this game tonight, the opener for 25-26 Kansas basketball. So we get to hear from the law firm of Leipold and Self today.
That's right.
Very excited on that. And then we'll preview, as I mentioned, KU and Green Bay to close out the show today here on ESPN Kansas City and KansasNation.com. All right, KU football, Dan.
Yes.
Did what they needed to. They knock off Oklahoma State 38-21. Pokes would get a late touchdown to make it a closer looking score at the end. Important touchdown to some, but the Hawks got it done by 17. Really kind of a slow moving first half. Oklahoma State scored the initial touchdown. KU would get a field goal from Lath Marjan, who's still perfect on the year, and then they would get
record.
a touchdown. That's right, school record, and he's 12 of 12 field goals, 33 of 33 extra points. Money Marjan, I've heard is a nickname of his.
That's a moniker.
So
yeah,
I like it.
That's a good one.
But then KU would get a touchdown. Daniel Highshaw closing out a 15-play drive, so they were up 10-7. A fast-moving half, kind of a strange half, not exactly the most exciting, I guess, but KU was up. And then it appeared Oklahoma State was going to, at the very least, tie the game heading into halftime. And this is where I'll let you take over, because this, to me and to many people, is the most important, not just play, but sequence of the game for KU. 4th and 2, KU gets the blocked field goal, and they take a 10-7 lead into the break. But as I was talking about postgame, let's not forget about the 3 previous plays. 1st and goal at the 3, Oklahoma State had plenty of chances, and they could have gone into the break winning this game.
Yeah.
And not only did that not happen, but then Leroy Harris, after a big push from Keenan Caldwell, ends up getting the block. And KU somehow was still leading 10-7 going into halftime. They got the ball in the second half. Back-to-back touchdowns kind of made it too tough for a winless Oklahoma State team.
Yeah, I think DK McDonald really showed a lot in this game on the good side of it, right? I mean, watching the game, you saw them do a really good job of matching up and some of the pre-snap motion things that Oklahoma State was doing. I thought that defense did a fantastic job. Still needed to be able to get off the field quick, right? They stayed on the field for some of those extended long drives. I mean, the reason that the score was so close is because Kansas, Lance brought this up, Kansas only got the ball twice in the first half, right? And they scored on both of them, which is great, right? And Kansas also went on a couple of long extended drives too, but just the game went by super fast. I remember talking to you at halftime, and you said the classic line of, "Well, this is one of the football games of all time." You know what I mean? It was relatively, I mean, boring is probably the right word, right? Not a lot of action, but at the end of the half, I'm glad you brought this up, because this is the second time that we've seen this for Kansas, where they've gotten a stop at basically the 1-yard line in the biggest moment of the game, and for the UCF game earlier in the year, and then this game as well. Because if Kansas is going into halftime 10-10, tied up, or even down, I guess what would it have been, 14-10, down against Oklahoma State, the worst team in the Big 12, heading into halftime, that game is very different in the second half. But Kansas was able to stand tall in the red zone, and that's an absolute credit to them, because this Oklahoma State team, yes, they're bad, but they still have really good players and really good athletes on this team. Ronnie Fields Jr. is fantastic running back, I thought. He was the one who actually got tackled at the 1-yard line, and then Kansas was able to stand tall. Special teams came up huge with that blocked field goal by Leroy Harris. Just an outstanding display of grit heading into halftime. So even if it's tied up, it's a 3-point difference if they make the field goal. But even if it's tied up, or even if Oklahoma State scores a touchdown on that sequence, that game does not end the way that it did. Kansas came out in the second half and just gas to the, pedal to the floor, just would not stop. Run game was fantastic. I'm so glad that Kansas was able to establish a run game. I mean, we saw LeSean Williams run the ball 10 times in a row.
Yeah.
Lance Leipold actually had a funny little quip about that in post game, where I believe it was Swain who brought it up, said, "Hey, you ran LeSean 10 times in a row." He's like, "Really? we did. And I guess he had said that he had got on Jim Zabrowski early in the game because they weren't running the ball enough. So it kind of felt like a nice little, like a funny poke, passive aggressive kind of thing of
Feed the beast.
Zabrowski being like, all right, well, if we're not running the ball enough, I guess we'll run it 10 times in a row here. And ran it, I believe it was 4th and 2, and Leishon got the ball. And then, on the 10th straight run, he wound up scoring. So yeah, I mean, look, it was a fantastic game in the second half. First half, a lot of those long extended drives, relatively boring, but Kansas really came up big in the second.
Yeah, they did, and it was nice seeing again. I personally would describe it as a palate cleanse.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that you.
That's an interesting. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's I've never
Did you
heard that
catch
one
that
before.
on my?
I did.
On my
I
thought?
certainly
Yeah.
did.
I personally would
Yes.
call it a palate cleanse, but
I said,
no, we were.
how many times did I say palate cleanse?
Yeah, we were
this
joking
week?
about that
Like
'cause
7, 8.
Dan was looking forward to the palate cleanse. That was a palate cleanse in a 17-point victory. But yeah, I mean, you look at some of the numbers, and we're not going to overly break down this game. Kansas is a good team. We can say that. Oklahoma State is not a good team. KU had to win at home. Nice winning on homecoming. By the way, the first time KU's won 4 consecutive homecoming games since 97 through
Wow.
2000. So shouts to KU on that front. But Leishon, 14 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Daniel Heishaw was solid in this one. A couple touchdowns, 14 carries, 65 yards. Nice seeing kind of that 1-2 punch that they haven't been healthy, right? They haven't been overly healthy, so we haven't seen that too often this season. JD didn't make very many mistakes. He wasn't perfect. Seemed like he was playing a little, I don't know if tight's the right word, but just was a little bit off, maybe a yip or two in the first half. But he ends up 13 of 19, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no turnovers. Again, the yards aren't going to jump out at you, 342 to 316, but 232 on the ground. That's great for Kansas.
Yeah.
And again, it was just the type of game that needed to end up in the win column for KU. And now we focus on the final 3 games, which is an opportunity for Kansas, who only had 5 wins last year, to get a 6th, 7th, maybe 8th win. I do think that as painful as the Dillon's Sunflower Showdown was, if Kansas can get to 7 wins, I think that's the number. Yeah, it doesn't erase the streak, but you're feeling good about the season if you get to 7 wins. And,
sure.
and there's a chance, like I said, mathematically, that you could get to 8. And we'll have to ask our guests this week their thoughts on that. But 5-4, now you get a chance to go to Arizona, a team who just blew the doors off Colorado. Maybe they're the new worst team in the conference. I don't know. Colorado's been dreadful. But yeah, KU will have a good shot, and it'd be a lot of fun heading into a bye week if the Hawks can get bowl eligible.
I think so too. I mean, look, we're not in the locker room, so we don't have to say this. I'm absolutely looking where we can find that 6th win. Arizona's good, right? They just blew out Colorado. Noah Fafita looks incredible. Their defense is really, really good. So it's going to be a hostile environment down there at Arizona. But also, I'm looking at the Iowa State game. Iowa State, they've kind of
lost 4 in a row.
Yeah, they've lost 4 in a row. They're not looking good. Kansas has beaten Iowa State 4 times or
3 times.
3 times in a row. So KU has Iowa State's number, right? Just one of those weird things. You're like, oh yeah, KU has beaten them 3 times in a row. Kind of crazy. And then obviously Utah, they look fantastic. I mean, they are blowing everybody out.
I did not expect that at all.
Insane. Like where do they even come from? I mean, over the last 3-4 games, they've been putting up 45 points every single time. It's just unbelievable. And shout out to Devin Dampier and Kyle Whittingham and company, but like they are looking really, really good. And that's going to be another interesting game because it's going to be a home game, but it's the day after Thanksgiving. So nothing against the fans, obviously, at all, but like you're looking at it and you're going, man, the crowd probably just isn't going to be there, or at least the student section, right? Because I talk to a lot of students. They're like, yeah, I'm going to be home for Thanksgiving, right?
It does make it tricky. Hopefully that's not the case. If KU has success, though, on the road before that, then people are going to be like, I got to get to this game.
Well, that's the thing. If Kansas is able to, knock off Arizona, knock off Iowa State, they're heading into the last game. It's going to be Friday after Thanksgiving. They're looking for their 8th win, looking for a much better bowl game.
Yeah,
I think you're looking at that and
awesome.
going, yeah, I'm definitely going to that game. That make that a little, Thanksgiving kind of getaway.
Utah has been playing so well, like I talked about, and Arizona's playing well too. Iowa State, they're down in the dumps right now a little bit. But in regards to, well, I guess in regards to the Arizona game, I think to me it has a little bit of a similar feel to when KU went, tell me if I'm wrong on this, to when KU went to Provo last year. And that's not just because it's 9 games in or whatever. It's different, right? I mean, KU was 3-6 last year. They're 5-4.
I agree.
BYU last year was 9-0, and Arizona, obviously, what are they, 6-3?
5-3.
5-3?
Yeah.
Okay. So it feels to me like Arizona's had a lot of good things happen, and KU again doesn't seem like they have a lot of good things happen, but the prognosticators are saying, hey, KU can go in and somebody understands that
Yeah.
KU is going to be right there with Arizona. Yeah, KU just won by 17, and it was kind of a ho-hum game against Oklahoma State, and they just had a bad performance the week prior, but the talent is still there. And
Yeah.
as we've talked about, this should be a Kansas team that goes to a bowl, and there's nothing to say they can't go on the road in a hostile environment just like they did last year and get a nice win.
Yeah, look, I had mentioned this to somebody off air, saying, look, if Kansas doesn't cover, I'm going to consider this a bad loss, right? But also looking at the game, looking at the way they established the run, looking at the way that the defense is able to hold up, and obviously they let up one late when Banks Bowen was in the game, right? But looking at the way that Kansas played this game, there's so many different factors that you could look at. Where I know, even though Kansas didn't cover that spread and they were, won by 17, or when they were a 24-point favorite, I'm not looking at this potentially as a bad loss. I'm looking at this and thinking like, oh man, like Kansas looked good, and obviously it's Oklahoma State. So like, what are you going to do? They stink, but Kansas looked really good. And I think that's the main thing you can take away from this, is that, okay, well, Kansas has momentum right now, right? Their defense has found its footing. And I think one of the beautiful things about this game is that you didn't really need Jalen,
Yeah.
right? You didn't need him. He went 13 of 19 for 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, right? Those numbers don't jump off the page at you. That's because we had 238 yards on the ground. Like, Le'Shawn Williams and Daniel Highshaw were having tremendous games on the ground, right? You had Isaiah Marshall bust one for 43 yards, right? I mean, you could do it on the ground, so you didn't need Jalen. And I think that is so important, because Jalen is such a key piece to this, where it's like, all right, well, look, if we're down and with Jalen, or Jalen's having a bad game, other guys can step up and finish this.
Yeah. Well, KU's 5-4. I'm not going to say we should be thrilled about that, but a
Yeah,
reminder that last year we were 3-6. I
true.
mean, yeah, we wanted to beat K-State, we wanted to beat Mizzou, we wanted to be 9-0, and that hasn't happened. But there's still 3 games, 3 really marquee games on KU's schedule, and an opportunity to get to a bowl. It would be great to do that Saturday, 2:30 kickoff in the desert against an Arizona team that's been playing really well. Last thing I'll say regarding this, yeah, we know it's not spectacular. We've had some disappointments this season. I said this in the postgame locker room show. I don't think this KU team has peaked yet. Not
Yeah.
close, right? Now, if you have Highshaw and Williams back and healthy, and of course you're beat up a little bit in the tight end room and some other spots, but you've got a great kicker. Your special teams has been great. If the defense can find a way to get some takeaways, that would be huge down the stretch, because
Mhm.
we still haven't gotten those, right? Still at
Yeah.
9. Brandon McAnderson said a great stat on the game broadcast on Saturday. Every team, I don't remember exactly the time frame, but if you're going to finish in the top 4 in the Big 12, you need to have 20 plus takeaways. Essentially,
for
that's
sure.
what history has told us. And KU's only at 9. They're going to need to wreak some havoc to make sure they get some wins, a couple of which are on the road here down the stretch. After this, we're going to talk to Kevin Flaherty of the Kansas City Sports Network, breaking down this 17-point victory for Kansas football. And of course, it's opening night for KU basketball as well. Kevin joins us next. Thanks for listening on ESPN Kansas City and watching KansasNation.com. Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports here at KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Now we're going to be joined in studio by Kevin Flaherty, Kansas City Sports Network. Kevin hosts the Pay Heat podcast and the Verbal Commitment podcast. Appreciate you making some time for us during this very busy season right now. Kevin, let's start talking KU football. We were just talking about that in the open, 38-21 over Oklahoma State. 4th straight homecoming win for KU, which was nice. But a little palate cleanse for KU, I would say, after a rough week in the Sunflower Showdown. What did you like offensively from KU in particular, and the fact that they got that big stop toward the end of the half that spearheaded the good second half?
Yeah, the defense struggled in the first half, and when you look at halftime, Kansas has 10 points. You're saying, man, feels like the offense hasn't done that much. You look up, they only had 2 drives and scored on both of them. You get a field goal on the first drive, a touchdown on the second drive, but it was one of those sort of weird games because both offenses were churning out methodical drives, especially early on, and so you just didn't see that much of the ball. And so I liked how you brought up in the open getting the blocked field goal to end the half. To keep you in the lead, you get the ball back, obviously, to start after halftime. you're able to add a little bit of distance, and then from that point on, Kansas kind of took off. But it was a game where the offense played extremely well. You didn't wind up punting. You scored on every drive basically you had, other than the victory formation twice at the end
Right.
of the game.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to ask for much more than what the offense gave in that one.
No doubt. And, defensively, we know this Kansas team needs to create more takeaways. They,
Yeah.
again, weren't able to do that at all, but they did get the stop. The special teams remain stellar. And then offensively, we know KU's been a little bit thin at the tight end position with the injuries to Carson Brune and Deshaun Hanika. They used Nolan Gorsica a little bit. David Lawrence was just absolutely loving what he saw from Nolan Gorsica on the offensive line. And in general, the guys up front played much better.
Yeah, absolutely. And the offensive line needed that really badly after the two previous games. I always like to say that there's very little more dangerous in the world than 18 to 23-year-olds with confidence. And this is a group that really needed that confidence back after the way the Texas Tech game went, where you give up 9 sacks, 8 of them on Jalen Daniels. Kansas State, you give up 4 sacks. Jalen got sacked 12 times in 2 games. And I thought in this game, actually, I don't want to say he had happy feet, but he seemed a little bit unsure early, settled in, was really good in the second half. But that was the sort of offensive line performance that Kansas has wanted all year. It was maybe the best game from Calvin Clements. You mentioned using Nolan Gorska as an extra offensive lineman at that tight end position. And guys, one of the bigger plays of the game, they had him out there, the fourth down run to Leshaun Williams that broke open, and they were able to go in and get a touchdown from there. And so it was something that when we talked to Lance Leipold, he said is going to continue to probably be a part of what they do with the attrition they've had at the tight end position. But overall, a really good week for the offensive line and a great job by those guys of establishing the tempo and the pace of that game.
Yeah, Kevin Flaherty, KCSN, joins the show here in studio. Kevin, we talked a little bit about it. Obviously with the finally being able to establish a run game, right? With Daniel Highshaw and Leshaun Williams, and I talked about this earlier about how it's almost like Kansas didn't really need Jalen to be Jalen, right?
Yeah.
And it's Oklahoma State. They're terrible. They've gone through a bunch of coaching changes, but at the same time, like that's also a really good thing to see. Is like, okay, well, look, if Jalen does. Heaven forbid if Jalen does go down, like these guys are able to step up and do some really good things. I mean, do you share that assessment and talk about Jalen and his play in particular? Because, in a game where there was a lot of really good stuff, I mean, Jalen didn't have the numbers. He had 2 touchdowns, but 110 through the air. Just talk about him.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing about this game and the way that it played out is a lot of people said, "Oh, it's Oklahoma State. They're 1-7, 1-8, whatever they are now." But the one thing that Oklahoma State was doing pretty well coming in was stopping the run.
Yeah.
They had allowed, I think, 107 yards a game, something like that, since the coaching change. Held Texas Tech, who we know is a very good rushing offense, just went into Manhattan and bullied Kansas State with the running game. Held that Texas Tech team to under 90 yards rushing as a team. And so, yes, Oklahoma State struggled, but that wasn't where their issues were. And so for Kansas to come out and establish that, and I like that you bring up Jalen, in that I think with quarterbacks, we're so quick to put everything on how they throw the ball. And in actuality, part of the reason I think Cole Ballard has a real chance to win the quarterback competition after this year is all the other stuff. Getting guys lined up in the right place, checking out of bad plays, making decisions at the line. And the other thing that Jalen does really well that we've talked about on the show, he is a tremendous option quarterback. And I don't mean just, triple option, whatever. I mean zone read, things of that nature too. And so Jalen didn't have big numbers. Like you said, he did have a good second half. I think he was 6 for 7 with 2 touchdowns in the second half. The one incompletion was, when he got on the move, put it up for Emmanuel Henderson, gave his guy a chance, just couldn't quite get that foot in. But overall, I think what Jalen did that was really effective were those other things. He gave the ball when he was supposed to give it. He kept the ball when he was supposed to keep it. And I think that he probably had a little more impact on the running game than maybe a lot of people would have realized if you go back and watch the tape.
And we also saw kind of a emergence of Bryson Canty, right? This is a guy who we talked about all off season, and he'd been dealing with some injuries. He was here and there, maybe 1 reception here or whatever. I mean, he had 2 receptions for 29 yards, but both of those receptions were huge. One of them was a touchdown, and I talked to him after the game. He said this is the healthiest that he's ever felt. And Lance had even said, look, if he didn't deal with this injury, like he might be our number one guy,
Yeah.
basically. So, I mean, talk about Bryson Canty and what you're expecting out of him for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, out of that transfer class, I thought Bryson Canty was the best bet opposite Emmanuel Henderson to start on the outside because I thought Levi Wentz is a big body guy. He's really physical. Canty brings a little bit more juice and he still has some of that physicality, but he's a little bit more nimble and has some of that extra stuff. It really hurt him to not be a mid-year guy and get to go through the spring. And then it hurt him to be injured through fall practice where he didn't really have a chance to stake his claim to go in there. But it's pretty nice to be able to graduate from an Ivy League school,
Right.
Yeah.
in the off season. And I think with him being healthy, you're starting to see that potential, and you're starting to see, hey, it doesn't have to be Emmanuel Henderson every down. Yeah, Emmanuel Henderson is a terrific player. His speed really influences what defenses do because he's item 1A on the scouting report. You say the number one
Yeah.
thing is we cannot let this guy get over the top of us. And I think you're starting to see sort of the vision with that transfer class when you're seeing now what Bryson Canty's doing, what Cam Pickett is doing
Yeah.
underneath a lot of that stuff. And so it's great to see Canty healthy and playing well.
We talk a lot about the run game, and of course, when fans hear that, they hear, okay, Daniel Hishaw and Le'Shawn
Yeah.
Williams, right? Well, there are other players on this team who can impact the run game, whether it's wide receiver, I don't know, wide receiver Gibbs, I guess, and Manuel Henderson or Cam Pickett. Pickett is a guy who's so fast. I think he's such
Yeah.
an underrated athlete, and he really can make things shine. And we also saw Zeke Marshall. We haven't seen Cole Ballard, I don't think, since the fumble at Texas Tech, but we know that he can run the ball. He showed that in his time as a true freshman. But there are some other pieces, and you can kind of see Zabrowski and Leipold playing with those pieces a little bit more here as guys are getting healthy.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see the action off the action, right? Because if you have these plays where you're giving Zeke these carries, and I love the little fake pitch play they ran with him. That
Yeah.
was
Mm-hmm.
that was a lot of fun. But you just know there's something in the playbook where when defenses put 9 guys in the box, you're going to have a throw off of that play, and so I'm really interested to sort of see some of the game within the game as far as that goes. But I love your point too, because Kansas hasn't been in a spot a whole lot this year where both running backs have been healthy. And so they've been in a spot where you've had to quote unquote steal carries in order to continue to have a consistent running game. And I think you're starting to see now both running backs are healthy, but they also noticed, hey, those other things can be pretty effective. You can give Cam Pickett the ball on a jet sweep or reverse and get him the ball out in space and use the speed, use the elusiveness that you talked about. You can get Zeke Marshall out there and do some fun things with him. And so those are ways to sort of keep some mileage off your running backs and off of Jalen Daniels as well.
Yeah, well said. KU over Oklahoma State 38-21. And now, Kevin, we're at 5 wins, 5-4. We knew when we looked at this schedule, before the season started, we were like, hey, this is going to be a tough final 3-game stretch. It actually has played out that way, unlike last year where it was like, oh, well, that's a win and that's a loss and the whole conference was upside down. But yeah, 3 solid teams, right? Arizona, Iowa State, Utah, 3 teams who maybe are all going to be playing in a bowl, not so sure. But your confidence level that KU can play their best football down the stretch here as they need to get a 6th win, ideally sooner rather than later.
Well, I loved your point in that I don't think this team has peaked either. I don't think they've put it all together just yet. I think there have been some times when the defense has been pretty good. You look at the second half against UCF in particular, there have been some times where the offense has been really good. But typically, even with the offense, it hasn't been the whole picture coming together at once. And so you've got 3 games left. And if all of that clicks, they can beat any one of those 3 teams. And that includes Utah, who's playing really, really well
Yeah.
right now. I think Arizona will be fascinating to me because I love their guys on the back end of that defense. And so I think it's going to be tough to go out and have a big Jalen Daniels game where you're going to see him throw for 300 yards. You're going to have to maybe rely on that running game that just happened this past week and be a little bit more variable. Defensively, can you get off the field against Arizona? Can you put them into 3rd and long situations and then close out? All of those are things that Kansas has done at times this year, but it hasn't been a fully painted picture. And so I do think that, hey, this is a team that has a great chance to be bowl eligible. That would be huge because of the guys that you look at coming back next year, especially defensively, especially with having a quarterback battle with the guys that you have in that room right now. Having those bowl practices would just be humongous. I do think they're going to get to bowl eligibility, but to your question and what you were talking about beforehand, yeah, if this team comes together, if they play their best football at the end of the year, this team could get to 8-4. It's just a question of whether or not they do.
Kevin Flaherty, KCSN, joins the show here in studio. Let's go ahead and transition and flip it over to basketball as KU taking on the Fighting Doug Gottliebs tonight. Kevin, are you going to be attending the game with your shorts on backwards? I would imagine, right?
My favorite part about that is the fact that Roy held that against him for so long. I think Gottlieb said something fairly inflammatory about Roy needing to retire or something a few years or a year before Roy actually retired. And Roy, after the press conference finished, told him, he goes, "This guy couldn't even put his shorts on right. He would wear his shorts backwards." And so, I will not be wearing the backward shorts. I do look forward to his return to Allen Fieldhouse and look forward to continuing to see this team because I think this is going to be a team that people are going to enjoy watching, the way that they compete, the way that they're going to battle. And the other thing I think people will enjoy with this team, guys, is the way they're going to grow. They're going to be significantly better, I think, in February and March than they are right now. And so it really is one of those enjoy the journey type of seasons because there are going to be some moments early that you're probably going to be tearing your hair out every now and then. But seeing that growth from game to game, week to week, I think is going to be one of the fun parts about this team.
For sure. And, obviously with Green Bay coming in, right, they're not UConn or North Carolina or Duke or anything like that. But, there's still a lot of question marks. Obviously, this is going to be the first one that actually counts.
Yeah.
Are you still looking at this kind of as an evaluation game, I guess, if you will, trying to figure out that starting five or the rotational pieces for the Chapel Hill game? Or do you think Bill Self probably has a relatively clear picture in terms of minutes distribution, where he wants guys as of right now?
I am super interested to see what the rotations look like. And the reason I say that is you look at when Kansas came out last time against Fort Hays State, Bill Self was throwing some pretty wacky lineups out there at time, just sort of like, hey, is this group going to work together?
It was crazy when he had the law firm all out there at the same time.
The law firm, of course.
The law firm. Yeah. Having the law firm out there all at once. But no, in all seriousness, I do think you coach differently in an exhibition game where you're like, hey, this thing doesn't really matter. Let's get some guys some court time. Let's, see what this guy can do. And now all of a sudden, the expression, the live bullets, right, are out there. You've got North Carolina coming up on Friday in a game that counts. And so I do think that this is going to be a game that Bill Self is not going to coach like it was Fort Hays State. He's going to coach it like, hey, let's find out what our best rotations are, what our best players are heading into that North Carolina game, because that's a big one to start off.
And what did you see? It's been a while now since we played Fort Hays. KU didn't score as many points as you would probably hope to against Fort Hays. Didn't have Darren Peterson. Also only gave up 35 points. Any particular rotations, any particular facets of that game that you liked?
No, not particularly, because my favorite rotations have Darren Peterson in
right.
But no, in all seriousness, the one thing I will say that I thought was really positive from that game is I thought they really defended well and worked defensively. And to me, we've talked about this, I feel like, several times, but that's where this team's bread is going to need to be buttered. That's going to need to be the night in, night out thing. Is they're going to need to defend and do really well on that end. And that's something you can control whether Darren Peterson's on the court or not, is your effort with all of that. And so I was interested to see, hey, are they going to come out and be sloppy and not really, not really have the energy, or are they going to rotate? Are they going to really get after guys defensively? And I thought it was a big positive that, I'm not saying they were perfect on defense, but I thought it was a real positive that I didn't see any of sort of that residual effect from, hey, we're only playing Fort Hays State.
I feel like the Fort Hays State game felt like a while ago, but I don't think we've talked to you since then. So lumping the two exhibition games together heading into this one, what's the biggest surprise to you? And I guess the easy answer is probably Bryson Tiller,
Sure.
right? But I guess what has been the biggest surprise out of those exhibition games? And do you, whatever surprise that is, do you think it's going to continue on throughout the year?
Yeah, I would. I know it's cheating, but I would say Tiller.
Yeah, no,
I
for sure.
think,
That's probably the right answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think when you look at the outside shooting, you'd like Cole Rosario to be hitting at a higher rate right now. You'd like to see Jaden Dawson kind of hitting at a higher rate right now. But that wasn't necessarily a surprise, right? Cole Rosario is playing in his first games. He should be in high school right
Yeah.
now. And Jaden Dawson's a guy that we've heard has been banged up. And so there's nothing necessarily disqualifying about any of that. I do think the fact that Bryson Tiller has been so good so fast really gives you an answer at those 4 and 5 spots
Yeah.
when you want to pull Trey White out, when you want to pull Flory Badunga out. Whereas before you were kind of looking at a guy like Paul Mbia and you're saying, is he going to have to play 15 minutes a game? Is he going to have to play 20 minutes a game, regardless of how good he may or may not be, regardless of how he's playing? And now it feels like you have more answers at those spots.
Yeah.
So obviously we've got a game tonight, KU and Green Bay at Allen Fieldhouse, but then Friday is a big one. North Carolina, they're not a top 5 team. It's not big on that, but it's maybe the two bluest blue bloods. I don't know, throw Kentucky in there. I think that's probably the 3, right? And KU, UNC. KU's never played in Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That is
7-6 all time KU is against UNC, and of course we remember a lot of very very memorable games in this series, particularly in the NCAA tournament, as Coach Self and Coach Williams. And Coach Williams didn't have any interest in scheduling KU while he was at UNC, and here we are now with Hubert Davis. But preview that one a little bit, because UNC kind of a fringe top 25 team, but also just the experience that our guys get of going, because this is what's great for college basketball, right? I mean, the bluest of blue bloods, and Duke's been a blue blood for 35 years, 40 years, however long, and Kentucky's always been there. But KU and UNC, with the intertwined history in terms of basketball, it should be special.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many links when you look at,
Mhm.
obviously Dean Smith, and then Dean Smith and Larry Brown being from North Carolina and coming back here, and then
Yeah.
Roy Williams following, and Roy Williams going back, and all of those different things that you talked about, the NCAA tournament history, and I think too, whether North Carolina is a good team or not this year, and quite frankly, we won't find out on a lot of these teams for a while. I think the experience of going to a place like that, playing in a blue blood like that, there's a lot of value in something like that. Indiana wasn't perfect when KU went out and played in Bloomington a few years ago. Played really well in that game. And I think part of the reason that was about as good as Indiana looked that year was the fact that they were playing a team with Kansas
Yeah.
across the
Right.
front of their jersey. It was a huge game from that standpoint. And so here you have a young Kansas team, certainly a team very inexperienced at being at Kansas and getting the kind of bullseye that comes with being at Kansas. And then you go into a game like that at the Dean Dome. It's going to be packed. Obviously, last year's game was a really close one. When you have all of those things working together, it is such a valuable experience, especially for a KU team that is going to have a really tough non-conference slate. You wind up with Duke here in a little bit. You get UConn. You have all the different things. I couldn't ask for a better sort of week one. You hate to say measuring stick, but it kind of
Yeah.
is, right? A game where you get a chance to evaluate where your guys are and how they respond to big moments like that. And quite frankly, it's a group that already played at Louisville,
True.
as
Yeah.
crazy as that sounds, even if it was an exhibition.
Yeah, 7-6 all time. Like I said, KU's won the last 5 in the series. We didn't even ask you about Noah Fafita in Arizona. Any key top 2 keys maybe for KU to go there and pick up a win on the gridiron?
I think the running game is going to be huge. Kansas really has to be able to run the football in this one because, like I said, when you look at Genesis Smith and that back end of the Arizona defense, it's one of the best in the Big 12. That's not to say that Kansas can't throw the ball, but you don't want to be in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, where you're throwing the ball and Arizona knows you're throwing the ball. And so I think that's going to be one of the biggest keys. And on the other end, I really think and it feels like a broken record because we do say it every week. First down success rate feels so huge
Mhm.
because Kansas has not been good at getting third down stops, but a big part of getting third down stops is winning on first and second down and putting teams into bad situations there. And so I do Noah Fafita is a terrific quarterback. They have a good receiving core. They did a really nice job tapping into their running backs as well against Colorado. I think that offense is kind of humming right now and will be a real challenge for the KU defense. And I think that's another reason why KU's running game could be pretty important on this one. If you wind up having 12 and 14 play drives, keeping the other offense off the field where they're cooling their heels over there, that can help your defense quite a bit too.
How about +2 in the turnover battle? Can we make
That
that
would
happen?
help,
That would be very
yeah.
helpful. A couple extra possessions for our guys. Kevin Flaherty, Kansas City Sports Network. Always appreciate your insight. Appreciate your time. Hopefully an exciting week ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Got
Yeah.
a chance to see Caden Snyder, KU commit
That's
this
right.
past
That's right.
weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be another fun one this week. I get to actually see one of the local teams from here, Lawrence Free State,
Nice.
taking on my alma mater, Shawnee Mission Northwest.
There
So
you go.
I'll try not to have my black and orange pom poms out.
Yeah,
for that
Shawnee
one.
Mission Northwest. They run the what is it? What isn't it? Shawnee Mission Northwest.
Yeah, they run flex.
Run the
bone.
flex
Flexbone.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah.
Oh man.
How many years has that
Shout
been
out
going on?
Minot State too.
I want to say 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
You're seeing it a lot more in high school football. Gardner Edgerton's won state titles,
Yeah.
doing it here recently, and I think people are starting to see, hey, you can run a flex bone and not be elite up front, and you can win a lot of football games at the high school level because it's so tough to prepare for.
Yeah, interesting. No, I remember calling a game with I think it was Free State and at Shawnee Mission Northwest last year, and I was like, man, these guys know what they're doing out there on the
I,
flex
s-
bone.
I was color for Emporia State, Minot State this year, and they ran a flex bone. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fun.
so
It's
much fun.
For
It's
sure.
fun.
Kevin Flaherty, Kansas City Sports Network. Follow him on Twitter at KFlaherty, KCSN. After this, we're going to hear from Lance Leipold, post-game KU's 17-point victory on homecoming over Oklahoma State. You're listening to ESPN Kansas City and watching KansasNation.com. To Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Hey, we're going to hear from Lance Leipold post-game. The Hawks over the Cowboys 38-21. It was a win, an important fifth win. Here's Coach.
Lance, the stop followed by the blocked field goal entering the half, what kind of impact did that have on the game overall, and how did you see it kind of affect the team as they went into the locker room?
For the block field goal, I think it was huge. Missing, they missed 2 field goal attempts. The block, I think, gave us a spark of, obviously momentum and excitement and energy that we made the play, made the stop, and otherwise, we had to really slow them down a lot and those things, and with us getting the ball coming out, and that was important as well.
Maybe just kind of piggyback off that. How has special teams been? How was it today? And just how has Lathan Marjon been a big part of kicking this year?
Lay's been awesome. As you know, he's having an excellent year in field goals for us. He's been very consistent. Unfortunately, he had the one out of bounds today, but his kickoffs have been very good all year as well. Very steady for us in everything that we're doing. If you look, I think overall, throughout the Big 12, I think we're definitely in the upper 25%. I think in special teams production, and it's been very important for us so far. I thought we had a solid day again today.
Coach, how important was it today getting both Daniel and LeSean involved in the run game?
It was extremely important, and again, it's I don't even know which interview I said this to, but it's the most healthy the 2 of them have been since the opening game of the season. And now that you're at this stage, besides between practice reps and where they're going, to have them both healthy going down this final stretch will be very important for us. You can see when they complement each other well. They're very physical runners with good vision, and again, it's hard to bring them down, on first contact. So the spark that both of them gave us was huge today, and for us to have that type of day on the ground was a very important part of the win.
Lance, you talked after the Kansas City game about what the mood was in the locker room after that loss. Just how would you describe the mood in the locker room?
Guys were excited. They were excited during the game, and for me, it's kind of like they're sometimes almost too loose for me. I want to make sure. I was kind of worried until the game's completely over, but there's a group that's proud of that, and I'm proud of them for sticking with it. Again, when confidence can get dented at times in this thing, and where you're going, and they stuck together. We talked about our leadership as we did during the week, and I thought our leadership group did a great job. I think our guys put the time and effort in that it took. I didn't think, obviously, we don't take anyone for granted in this, and to play a team only had 1 win. think we were well focused and found out that especially in the first half, we were in for it was going to be a tough football game, and for us to keep chipping away at it and find a way to pull away was really important.
After a sluggish first half, you guys had four touchdown drives in the second half. What was the difference?
I guess I'd say, what do you mean by sluggish? We only had the ball twice and we scored both times, so I don't know. I mean,
10 points versus
we
28.
we had 10 points, but we scored at both possessions, so we just didn't get off the field, and it was a very fast first half. And for a game that we didn't punt, I think it was huge. I think we were able to get we got off the field defensively, and then we started to capitalize. But again, getting in a little bit of rhythm, mixing it up. I think we established a little better running game at that time, and in the second half, that gave us the balance that we needed.
Piggybacking off the running back part, how much of an impact has that had, those guys being banged up and not being healthy at the same time? How much do you feel like that's impacted the ability for you guys to run the ball consistently over the course of the year?
Well, again, when you don't have your top two guys on the field all the time, if I say it's going to hurt, then it's like we're making excuses, so I want to be careful there. But again, you can see when they're healthy, when they're playing, where our team is at times and what we can do, especially in tough, getting the hard yards. And you see, the thing that I enjoy watching about both of them is that they're not going to always go down on the first hit, and they keep piles moving. And, I think LaShawn has really good patience and vision, and then hits things. Daniel, again, is becoming more and more confident and trusting even his speed around the corner at times to make plays happen. And so, again, we're a better football team when they're both healthy and on the field.
Well, LaShawn had 10 straight carries, I think it was.
Did he really?
Yeah, on one of those drives. When you're in the headset, are you hearing, keep running? Like, are you thinking about that at the time?
Well, one time, I got to be honest, I was like, in the early part of the game, I got on Z a little bit because I never felt we ran the ball twice in a row, and I tried to sarcastically say there's no rule that says you can't run it twice in a row. So, not you guys are going to print all that. So, but he knows again. And then as we drove down for that one, I think in that drive you're talking to, he was like, I'm going to try not to throw it. Now we're up at that time. We're up 17 at the time, I believe, and we're trying to use the clock and do things. And I thought Jalen did a great job with clock management at that time, snapping the ball under 5 all the time. And we kept trying to work and it's, as you can see, Oklahoma State was rotating a lot of guys and stuff, trying to keep bodies fresh and stuff. So when you're having success against a team that's keeping guys a little bit more fresh than what your linemen are, and still having success, I think it's a good day's work.
And Bryson Cansey had 2 big catches. What'd you like about his performance?
Bryson, the tough thing with Bryson is, he's very talented, big physical receiver. I feel bad for him because, I say bad, he was, as you guys that are here all the time know, he was slowed down in camp. If Bryson Canty would have been a transfer that showed up in January, he would be he would, again, not taken away from others, but I think you'd be seeing him making more contributions even than he does now. Between that and the camp injury, just really slowed getting him into the rhythm. But you start seeing him make plays, and really the first catch was a great catch, and then the touchdown itself. But hopefully a guy again that's going to add to that room and another good target as we head down the rest of this month of November.
Coach, you fall behind early. What's the message to the team on those first couple of drives?
Well, again, you never want to, and I know we've said we had some slower starts, and sometimes trying to get a feel for rhythm, we got to settle down, but sometimes settle down is we got to be more aggressive at times, and I think it's the second consecutive game that within that first drive that we've given up points. We've had a 15-yard face mask penalty that we're giving away 15 yards at that time. Missed a couple tackles too in there. Again, we got to settle down, come out of the gate and execute better in those. But again, the biggest thing is no matter what happens in that first drive, you can't flinch and panic about it and lose confidence. You got to keep playing. And as we saw, I think our defense really settled down and played well.
Lance, I know you mentioned Leipold earlier, but I know he set the school record today for consecutive kicks made without a miss. What do you think of that? And it's kind of something you're surprised about, or
I'm
what you
surprised to
expected?
see you in the second row. I'm kind of confused here, but what do I think? Again, Brian Haney, voice of the Jayhawks, made mention of it on the radio show on Hawk Talk on Wednesday, and I was concerned it was going to jinx him and throw it on there. But for him to have that type of consistency in the year he's given us has really been amazing. Like I said, he's been like a lot of our new additions. They've been really good guys to add to this program, not just as football players, but as people. And he's near the top of the list in that regard, just by what he brings. And even when things don't go, like he kicks the ball out of bounds, and I asked him if he was okay because he had struggled. He was a couple weeks back. If you remember, we talked about that, and I asked him if he's okay. He goes, "No, coach, just a bad kick by me. I got it this time." And never makes an excuse. Doesn't deflect to something else that happens. He just goes about it and works hard every day.
Lance, you alluded to it with the sticking together and how proud you are of these guys. I wonder, how much did your team need this win? I imagine UCF feels like it was a little while ago.
Yeah, it was, and we needed it. But as I told him, winning 5 games at Kansas hasn't happened a lot, and we can't forget that sometimes. Okay, and when you go through that, and I heard a coach say one time, again, every Saturday half the teams win and half of them lose. And it's hard, and we always talk about this conference and the parity and all the things that happen, and you can see it across the conference again probably today with certain outcomes that you never know what's going to happen. And for us to keep working and be prepared and put it all out there, and I'm proud of our players. I'm really proud of our coaches as well, because again, when skepticism and things kind of try to dent your program and things like that, you got to keep working. And as people ask, I think we said it as well last week. Tomorrow we're in here working just like we did last Sunday. The same way, the same breakdowns, the same schedule, all the way through, and we've got to find a way to get ready for Arizona. But I am proud because, again, between the open weeks and things like that, it does seem to drag, and you kind of seem like where it's at for us to find a way to get to a victory.
What do you think about the targeting call on Saeed?
I can't keep spending money that way. Okay. I don't know what targeting is anymore. I really don't. And I could see possibly where it's at, but I thought his face was up. I thought it was in the shoulder, the chest area. I really didn't see it close enough where it's at, but I don't know. I know it's frustrating to a lot of people right now, where it's kind of reverted back to. So I don't know where it's at, but we'll take a good look and to see if we can appeal it or not, if it's worth appealing, and go from there.
Coach, how big of a game changer was Isaiah Marshall's big play for 43 yards in today's game?
It was a very big spark for us. In fact, I told him right before I came up here, I said, your run was a big one that sparked us when we needed something, and we needed that little boost, and it was huge. I thought the option play to Cam Pickett was also another one that got us some good momentum when we needed it as well. That was a nice big run. But Isaiah came in there and got sparked. Now, probably the other part of the targeting call that was frustrating is that I was hoping that we were going to get Cole and Isaiah both in the game and do some things with some of the other guys that work hard, and we could have got some guys some playing time and touches and things, but wasn't meant to be.
Time for one more, John.
Lance, you guys, front 7, defensive line, held them to 72 yards rushing. What did you see from them?
Again, I thought we got to, especially like I said, second half and some other things, we got to be disruptive, and I thought Tommy Dunn showed up. I thought Marcus Calvin showed up. Again, Blake's been very consistent. DJ Withers, again, he goes down and he's banged up and he fights his way back in there. I thought Dean Miller ran around and he really was flying around the field today as well. But that front seven, like you said, we settled down, we got some things, and again, a whole defensive performance I thought gave us a big chance for this victory.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's our victorious head coach, Lance Leipold, after the win over Oklahoma State on Saturday. We're going to hear from Bill Self a little bit later in the show, but after this, Case of the Mondays segment here on Rock Chalk Sports, KansasStation.com, and ESPN Kansas City. Case of the Mondays here on Rock Chalk Sports. Dan, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the World Series game, an absolute epic. Game 7, best 2 words in sports, got an opportunity. Blue Jays ahead in the series 3-2 with 2 at home, and obviously they're the only Canadian team in Major League Baseball. First time ever, by the way, the baseball season both started and ended outside the United States. Because they had a...
Is that right?
I don't remember where the first game was between, I think, the Dodgers and the Padres. But anyway, yeah, so Game 7 was in Toronto, and yeah, it didn't go well for the Jays. 4-3, bases empty, 1 out. Miguel Rojas is up for the Dodgers, and everybody's thinking the same thing. Ohtani's on deck. That's what you're thinking. Like, it gets to 3-2 on Rojas. You're like, well, no, you can't walk him. Ohtani's on deck, and Ohtani could tie the game. And if you walk him, Ohtani can put the Dodgers on top. Well, Rojas, who prior to a hit previously in the game hadn't had a hit since October 1st, is in there for defensive purposes. I think he's like 35 years old. Unloads. Jeff Hoffman blows the save. Rojas, a guy who's had about 50 homers in his major league career. A long career, good for him. Not a power hitter by any stretch. Somehow he plays hero there. And then just multiple other things happened for the Jays. So they're going to kick off our Case of the Mondays segment here.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this, right? This is probably the most exciting World Series in recent history. And that's, I mean, I'm including the Royals in that, right?
Yeah.
It's probably the best one that I've ever
2014 for sure, when the Royals lost in 7 to the Giants. I mean,
that was exciting, even though we were on the bad end of it, right? Mad Bum was just unbelievable, that series. But my God, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me because there's this thing sort of looming overhead of, with salary cap issues, and they're gonna bring it up in a meeting afterwards in 2026, and there might not be baseball in 2027, and you're looking at it, you're like, oh, I'm rooting for the Blue Jays because they're the underdog. They have the 3rd highest payroll in all of baseball.
Oh yeah,
so
they're not exactly the David and Goliath,
right? Yeah, I mean, in comparison to the Dodgers, sure, but at the same time, like, it would have been just a cool story if like the Brewers or somebody would have made it all the way. But yeah, no, the Blue Jays. I mean, Scherzer came out in the 5th inning, I believe. Scherzer was excellent all that entire game, and it just time after time, like there was every single chance that the Blue Jays got to win that game, just wasn't able to do it. By the way, I believe it was in the 10th inning. Whoever the center fielder is for the Dodgers almost lost them the game because the center fielder and the left fielder collided for the 3rd out.
Andy Pajes who came in, and he has been in the Dodgers lineup pretty much all season, but he's been so bad hitting that they took him out. They brought him in as a defensive replacement, and Kike Hernandez, who's kind of more of a utility guy, was in left field. Pajes came in to play center, and that was one of the ways that the Jays had their hearts broken, honestly, because that was bases loaded, bottom 9, 2 outs. Ernie Clement, who had a great series, was at the plate for Toronto, and yeah, I can't believe that Pajes got there, but he saved, obviously, the season for the Dodgers, because Kike was going back, and you could kind of tell he was contorting his body. It's like, there's no way this dude's catching me.
Well, they weren't talking either. Like, they ran into
but I
each
mean,
other.
you gotta go for it, right?
I know.
So I think Kike is happy that Pajes ran him over. But then you also had the play prior, I think it was the play prior to that, where they had a force out at home, and the Fresh Prince, who ended up being one of the heroes,
that's right,
hitting the homer, had to come off the plate to retrieve the ball, and then had the wherewithal, flexibility, all that to get his spike back on the plate to get the force out
just in time.
It's just unbelievable. I don't know that a team has ever or will ever come as close to winning a World Series and ultimately losing it than the Jays did, because of all of the things that we talked about. Couldn't get Rojas out. Again, he's a guy who, nobody's an automatic out, but he's not a strong hitter by any stretch. And then, you have that play by Smith at home, the play by Pajes and center, it was one for the ages, I think, for a Game 7, for a series. For Game 7, one of the great sports games of all time,
Yeah,
no doubt.
100%,
And
right.
and yeah, Jeff Hoffman, the closer for the Jays, who isn't exactly the best. I mean, he's earned that spot, and he is their closer, and he's done well enough to get the chance to get the final 3 outs of the World Series. He's not a top 5 closer in the league or anything. He said post game, I cost everybody in here a World Series ring, and that doesn't feel very good, essentially.
it
So
doesn't.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you feel for him. And
Case of the Mondays for David.
shame that somebody had to lose that one,
Yeah.
because it was an epic.
It was so much fun. I mean, my goodness, you would mention this, even if you're not a baseball fan, like it's still just everything that was at stake, and the going into extras and all the incredible plays down the stretch in that Game 7 alone. It just had me at the edge of my seat.
And Ohtani, of course, who, interestingly enough, in these back-to-back World Series championships, he's not the MVP either, because it was Freddie Freeman last year and Yoshinobu Yamamoto
Shohei
in this
Ohtani
one.
fraud watch.
Ohtani started this game. He was okay as a pitcher.
Yeah.
And then the Dodgers, they used every bullet that they had. They used Tyler Glasnow. They used Blake Snell. And then Yamamoto, who started Game 6, was back out there the next night. You just never see that, but that's what happens. I mean, it's like Bumgarner back in 14, but Yamamoto got the outs when he needed to. Alejandro Kirk hits the double play to end it, and just got to be a crushing scene at the Rogers Center.
For sure. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers. You guys earned it. Well, or I guess you guys paid for it. So yeah, good for you. I hate the fact that it was the Dodgers again. I'm never gonna get over that.
See, the problem is they have a lot of likable guys on their team.
They do. I know. I like Freddie Freeman. Mookie Betts is fun. Like, I don't know. Shohei obviously is
Yamamoto. Tyler Glasnow. Although Tyler Glasnow did apparently say post game, if you can't beat them, join them. And it's like, okay, Kevin Durant.
Right? Yeah. Come on.
But
Blake Trinan, by the way, Osage County kid, Osage City. Shout out. Stand up, Osage County. Case of Mondays for Brian Schottenheimer. Brian Schottenheimer. We have a picture for this. This is incredible. Apparently, an owl got into his house. Did you hear about this?
I did hear about this.
Brian Schottenheimer has been dealing with a lot, not only being a head coach of a terrible team with the worst fan base, but he's been having multiple issues with wildlife getting into his house. The picture is a picture of the pictures, by the way, is the funniest picture I think I've ever seen in my life. I think it's his son just cowering underneath an owl. It's so great. He said, I don't know if the owl was looking for the snakes that recently bit his dog. So recently he had snakes break into his house and bite his dogs.
My God.
And he said, I don't know if the owl was looking for the snakes that bit the dogs or what was going on. It's actually the story of a coach's wife. So I'm in game plan meetings last night doing some red zone stuff, and I leave the meetings around 10 o'clock, and I go back to my phone, and I literally had 72 text messages on my phone. 72. I'm a popular guy, so that's nothing abnormal. But it's literally started with a text from my son and his mother saying, there's a big hawk-sized bird in here. And I began to look down, and there was an owl. My son was doing some work and had the sliders open, and all of a sudden an owl came into the house. That's
unbelievable. Snakes and an owl, and that's a little bit different than a bird.
It's very different than have you ever had I went through a stretch in college because we had the fireplace that like wasn't capped, and we actually didn't even know like it existed because the opening to the fireplace was in the basement. We had, I'm not even kidding you, a like 8 or 9 day stretch where we had a bat in the house every single day.
Oh God.
It was the most terrifying thing in the world. And like my roommate was like looking it up. He's like, yeah, bats can like, they can slide under your door and get in your bed and nibble on your toes and give you rabies. I was like, oh my goodness. Why are you telling me this? Stop it. So we finally, we had to like get somebody to come in and close the, have you ever had any wildlife in your house?
Nothing past a squirrel. I mean, squirrel in the chimney.
Squirrel, that's fun.
Yeah, but no, nothing too crazy.
No mice or anything? Certainly you've had a mouse.
I mean, there have been mice, and I don't know that they've ever actually gotten in.
Our cats used to bring in snakes, and that was like our cats would. It was.
I don't like that,
man. That was rough. Hey, Case of the Mondays for Justin Tucker, because there's a new big leg in town. Cam Little hits his second longest
Right.
kick of the
But
year,
the-
but
the
this
longest
one
that
counts.
counts.
Well, this one counts. 68-yarder. It's unbelievable that's literally okay. So can you count the 70-yarder as his longest because it was a preseason game?
No.
Oh, that sucks. I mean,
it's like if you kicked it in your backyard, it doesn't really matter.
I guess that's true. They're going to line him up for a 70-yarder this year.
Yeah.
I would imagine. But Cam Little for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It was a weird visual watching the kick.
I know. Yeah.
Just because they were clearly lining up for a field goal, but he's like way on the other side of the field because he's so far away. So, but yeah, Cam Little, shout out
to Cam Little, man.
The pride of,
let me guess,
someone.
Toledo.
Cam Little.
What?
Cam Little.
Seems
Arkansas.
like Arkansas.
His
Good for
longest
you.
at Arkansas though was 56.
That's actually crazy. You know what? Lath Marjan's gonna get a 71.
He'll get there.
I feel it. I feel it in my bones.
Money Marjan?
Money Marjan. You know it. Shout out to Cam Little, man. 68-yarder. That's a new NFL record in a quite forgettable game.
It's also a case of the Mondays for the Bengals locker room as they lost, of course, to the Bears 47-42. Exciting game.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco, man, goated. But both Chases, Jamar and Brown.
Yes, Chase Brown and Jamar Chase.
Talking stuff on their own defense. Not happy with it.
I didn't see this.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
91 total points in that game.
Woo! That's pretty good.
Yeah, Bengals can score, but that was rough.
Case of Mondays for Hugh Freeze. Fired from Auburn. Unfortunate. The funny thing about this is that some guy actually got tipped off about the Hugh Freeze firing, not because he had an insider who told him that they were going to fire Hugh Freeze.
Not the insider of the normal way,
No,
I guess.
he was looking on the Auburn University Country Club tee times, and Hugh Freeze had a tee time on Sunday at 1:30, and it got canceled at 8:46 in the morning on Sunday. And then later in the day, they announced Hugh Freeze gets fired.
Interesting. Okay. I think it would have been funnier if it was he had a tee time scheduled when previously he was supposed to be in like a meeting or something, and people found out that he was fired by scheduling a tee time.
Right. He adds on a tee time.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Dude, I just thought of another top 10.
What's that?
Very good. Top 10 things that you would do the day after you get fired.
Oh my God, that's so good.
So good. So
from
good.
From a head coaching job or from like a regular job? Because
I would say, yeah, there has to be a stipulation that you're rich.
Okay, yeah, that's a great.
Yeah, because like going golf obviously is going to be somewhere on there, right?
Of course.
But yeah, solid top 10 idea.
Hugh Freeze put out a thing on social media where he was like, "Oh, hey, we at my time at Auburn, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for the fans and everything." Someone put it through an AI thing and found out he used ChatGPT to write the entire thing.
Yep.
A little update, by the way, on head coaching openings. I just wanted to kind of roll through this.
And how about funds?
As of right now, Arkansas, Sam Pittman got fired. Auburn, Hugh Freeze got fired. Jay Norvell from Colorado State fired. Billy Napier got fired from Florida. LSU, Oklahoma State, Oregon State, Penn State, Stanford, Virginia Tech, UAB, and UCLA. The coaching carousel continues
with 4 weeks to go in the regular season.
4 weeks
still.
to go. I know. I mean, there's probably going to be some firings at the end of the year. You'd imagine,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So
it's
going to be a lot.
Seeing so many mid-season.
Maybe I should apply for a head coaching job just for the hell of it because they're going to be running out of names, right?
Right.
I might as well throw my old name in the ring.
Hey, if you play your cards right, you get hired and then get fired and get a buyout.
God, could you imagine? That is the. I mean, it's the best gig in the world, being a fired head coach with a massive buyout. Also, case of the Mondays for the Iron Bowl legacy. Interesting stat. Apparently, this is going to be the 7th straight Iron Bowl with a unique head coaching matchup.
That is crazy.
Isn't that kind of weird? So
they almost made it.
Yeah, they almost
back to back.
So 2019 was Nick Saban and Gus Malzahn. 2020 was Gus Malzahn and Steve Sarkisian because Nick Saban got COVID.
That's right.
For the Iron Bowl.
Yep.
So Sark had to come in and coach for Alabama. Then in 21 it was Saban and Harsin. 22 was Saban versus Cadillac, if you remember that one. Then Saban Freeze. And then Saban left. Then they got Kalen DeBoer and Hugh Freeze, and now it's going to be Kalen DeBoer and DJ Durkin.
DJ Durkin,
former Maryland head coach, I believe. I think that's right. Former Maryland head coach DJ Durkin is now the interim head coach for
yes, that sounds right.
the Tigers. Interesting, and that just like I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever believe you if you said that there was a stretch of 7 years in a row where there was a different, unique coaching duo in the Iron Bowl.
COVID has a way about filtering its way into everything.
That's very true.
Like. It certainly did in 2020.
Hey, KC Mondays for Sammy the Saint. Sammy the Saint. That's absolutely right. Of course, we have some 7th tier English soccer fans here listening to Rock Shock Sports. Apparently, Sammy the Saint, the mascot for the St. Albany City 7th tier English football club, was escorted off the field after appearing drunk. Is the video playing right now? It's one of the it's so great. I mean, you can clearly tell
people are laughing.
This guy is struggling. I don't know how. Like, I'm a fan of mascots, by the way. I how do you feel about mascots in general? Like guys like Gritty or the Philly Fanatic, or like guys who are overly, just kind of over the top and like always poking on fans, because
I don't like that. I don't like when personally
there's two different
if
kinds
a
of
mascot's
mascots.
gonna like touch me.
Yeah,
that's not cool.
So like the
I like the slugger and the big J, the slugger, the big J, the friendly, joyful ones. I don't like the ones who like all of a sudden are gonna come up and like rip your head off.
They dump popcorn on like opposing fans. Yeah. No, so you don't like that.
No, I'm not a fan. No, I just want the friendly.
See, you know who did
lovable.
Who did it perfectly was the old Casey Wolf. I think he rode that line of he was crazy, never inappropriate though, and
he's got some spunk to him.
He's got some spunk. Yeah, that's absolutely right. The new Casey Wolf, I think he does a good job too.
Casey Wolf.
Casey Wolf.
Yeah.
Wolf. But yeah, shout out to Sammy the Saint, man. Drunk.
That's great.
Drunk mascot on the loose.
Sammy the Saint. Drunk.
I really want to get into my dad's into the Premier League. He'll like wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning on Sundays and watch like Leicester City versus West Ham or something. I want to get into like the low
mascots put on a good show.
Like the low tiered English football clubs with like 4,000 person stadiums, and like everybody there hates their team and they don't even like it, but they go to every single one of the games. That just seems like such a fun environment to me. It's just, I don't know. I'm a big fan. And then last one here, Case the Mondays for Community Christian College, because for the first time in 22 years, someone hung triple digits. That's right. Snow College. They defeated Community Christian College 101-6. And do you actually know what's crazy about this?
Call off the dogs, man.
Do you know what's crazy about this? Community Christian College had a better record than Snow College coming into this game. They were 4-2 heading into this game. Snow College was 3-4 heading into this game. Snow College put up 101 points to their 6. In the second quarter, they put up 44 points.
That's a rough day for Community Christian College. Just think of what Bishop Sycamore would have done against them.
Could you imagine?
That would have been just a bloodbath of all bloodbaths.
So that reminds me, and any Johnson County Community College ball knowers out there know that JCCC won the women's national championship in JUCO back in 2015, and they had a hard time scheduling a lot of JUCOs outside of 100 or 200 miles or whatever. So they kept on playing like William Penn JV schools. And my ex-girlfriend actually played for Johnson County Community College when they won the national championship. They beat William Penn, or no, I believe it was William Penn or some weird Kansas City school on the Missouri side. They beat them like 150 to like 24. And it was like
it's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch is the correct term. I was at those games and I was like, what?
It hurts you when you're not even involved in it.
Oh God, I know. You're like, goodness, great. I'm rooting for JCCC here, and it's like, it's like, call off the dogs, man.
Well,
It's
it's
horrible.
also a case of the Mondays for the Chiefs losing to the Bills. We're going to have more coverage on that tomorrow. But the Chiefs are 5-4, not in the playoffs if the season ended today. But also, they're still the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl.
That's right. Do you want me to tell you something terrifying?
The fact that our next game is at the Broncos.
The Carolina Panthers are also 5-4.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. Yeah. Case of the Mondays for the Packers.
Yes. My goodness.
13-point favorites. And the Lions. 9.5-point favorites.
Crazy.
You didn't
No.
parlay a little Vikings money line and Panthers money line?
I did call Chiefs were going to lose because the Bills always get them in the regular season.
Great. I hope you're proud of yourself on that front. Chiefs at the Broncos after a bye week. They got to get that one, and then you got the Colts. I mean, this is like. I mean, I'm not losing confidence or anything.
Lost to Steelers,
Chiefs are going to be fine, but you got to win at the Broncos, and now you have to wait 2 weeks before that game actually happens.
Daniel Jones is a rotting pumpkin at this point.
You think?
Like he looked terrible.
Well,
against
yeah. I
the
mean,
Steelers.
he didn't have a lot of protection. They're still 7-2 though.
True.
That'll be tough. After this, we're going to hear from the two-time national champion Bill Self previewing KU and Green Bay, the men's basketball opener tonight at Allen Fieldhouse, 7 o'clock. That's all coming up next on KansasNation.com, ESPN, Kansas City. Another season of Kansas basketball gets underway tonight at 7 o'clock. KU and Green Bay at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Let's hear from Bill Self previewing this matchup and much more last week.
I think Doug Gottlieb worked your camp once. Did you know at that time he'd be a coach?
He worked fantasy camp.
Yeah, that's
yeah, he came in for fantasy camp one time, if I remember right. But yeah, Doug's always been a high basketball IQ guy back when he played, and certainly commentating on everybody else playing as a media member, and now seeing as a coach. I think it's and still somewhat of a media member. I think it's a unique situation, but he's a very knowledgeable guy.
How did the game get set up?
If I remember right, I think he just called when he got the job at Green Bay, saying that he would really like to play here if we could work it out. And of course, that was pretty easy. So, yeah, it timed up well for both of us to do the opening game.
With all his new players, 10 or so, do you even watch last year's film?
I haven't yet, although I will watch a little bit. So we've scouted last year, but it's not going to be from a personnel standpoint. It'll be more from what they were trying to do. But who knows? We're hopeful to get their 2 exhibition games today, so we'll know more from that. But it's hard to evaluate and scout somebody if you don't know personnel.
I was going to ask you, they have a 29-year-old power forward, oldest player in Division I. What do you think of that player and that situation?
Well, I don't know the situation. He's in the Navy, wasn't he? So well, first of all, kudos to him for serving our country. I mean, that's probably the coolest thing about it, from my standpoint. And the other thing I think about collectively. If he and G go to dinner, you got 55 years of age, basically eating food together, so breaking bread together. So I didn't know he was the oldest in college basketball, but anybody that serves our country in the manner in which he did, if I understand it correctly, I think anybody would be good with allowing him to play at that age.
Coach, Darren didn't play on Tuesday. How's he doing? What's his update?
He's fine. He practiced today, full speed. So is he 100%? Probably not. But is he practicing? Yes. So I certainly don't anticipate holding him anymore from this point forward, unless something else happens.
I guess just broadly speaking, how do you feel about your team's preparedness with a real game coming up?
I don't feel very good about it. We had a bad day this morning, just not from an attitude standpoint or a tri-level standpoint, just from a attention to details, carryover, things like that. There a lot of slippage, a lot. I didn't think we were good at all the other night against Fort Hays, with the exception of Melvin. I thought Melvin played downhill and actually played with some personality and things like that. But we've got to be a heck of a lot better than what we have been in practice the last couple of days.
Yeah. You probably heard that Cole spent a great deal of time out shooting threes after the last game. Have you had? I'm sure you've had guys like that, that will go out after games and work on a particular skill.
Yeah, but I would say Cole would work regardless on anything that he felt he was deficient in at that particular time. And he hadn't shot the ball well. He'd probably shoot it better if he actually attempted shots with both shoes on. Did you guys see that? I'm like, what is that? I mean, if you're playing offense, wouldn't you just go put the shoe on and then kind of delay it until you get down there? If you're playing defense, I understand, but he ran down there and shot it in transition, if I'm not mistaken, and it was wide left. So I got a kick out of that. I don't think he'll do that again. But he needs to. He hadn't shot the ball well in a couple of weeks, but that'll change. I mean, he's also just too ramped up and too sped up right now. It's a different moment for him than and it is for everybody, especially the young guys, than just to practice. He's a little bit too geeked up. He shot one of them at Louisville that from the dead corner that hit the top right corner of the backboard, which is almost impossible to do. So he got to tighten that up a little bit.
Besides Cole, is there other guys on the team in the two exhibition games that we're not really seeing truly the guy that you're seeing in practice?
Well, I think you could say that about everybody. I didn't think Florey's been great. I didn't think obviously Trey I thought was just average in both games. Marco, I think he can be a lot better. I think Jaden Dawson has. We haven't seen him play a lot, but I think he's capable. I mean, there were some guys. I mean, Bryson Tiller's had some moments. Everybody's had some moments, but they're too few and far between. We got to play better collectively than what we've done. But I actually thought Fort Hays State was really good for us because after watching the tape, Mark does a great job. They're very sound defensively, and they make you make plays to beat them. And we just didn't make those plays, which was probably good for our guys to see.
Coach, could I ask, could you tell us what you mean by playing downhill? Does that have to be attacking the basket, or can a guy be playing downhill if he has energy and is shooting well from the outside and taking good shots?
When I play downhill, and yes, of course you can ask. You don't have to. But when I think of downhill, I think of playing towards the basket. There's a lot of coaches that think their teams run downhill to offense and uphill to defense. Just because of the pace and effort and that kind of stuff. What I want when I say downhill, and I think the majority of all people, when they talk about playing downhill, they're talking about playing towards their basket as opposed to playing parallel to it or playing to the other team's basket. And you see that a lot on offense, but you're so much hard to guard offensively if you're putting pressure on people. And playing downhill means putting pressure on people.
It's pretty clear with his size how that can be useful to you guys, but I guess what areas do you want to see him most improve in to be, I guess, the best backup big man he can?
He got to learn where he can play without fouling. I mean, he fouls way too much, and he's got to learn to play without fouling, and he's got to be a better lane protector / rim protector and a rebounder. He's not near as dominant in those areas as he can be, but he's big and he's long. He just got to play to that size better.
How close do you think he is to being ready for prime time and
I don't
minutes
know.
in big games?
Well, he's going to play minutes in big games just because we'll get in foul trouble from time to time, I believe. But do I think he's ready to play a huge role? Probably not. Do I think he's ready to have a role? Yes, and for that role to continue to expand and grow in the next, several weeks. But I'm happy with him, but he's got to play more aggressive.
And I think you mentioned this the other night about Trey and his offense. I wonder what's sort of the ideal vision you have for what he gives you offensively and how he gets it and where he gets it and all of those things. Is there a player comp that maybe you see him fitting into, or just in general, what do you want his offense to look like?
I would say when we recruited Trey, we recruited the best cutter on our team. We recruited the second best rebounder on our team. Recruited a guy that can make open shots but doesn't play to that. I think he's gotten to the point where he plays to that more than he's been a cutter and a rebounder. So he's got, I think, and we talked about it, I think those are areas he can certainly improve in and not give up who he is and what he does well at the expense to try to become too much of a three-point shooter. We have some guys also that have fallen in love with it, that takes away from the aggressiveness and playing downhill.
Bill, with Marco, what do you expect from him this season? And also kind of, have your expectations changed since pre-injury, post-injury, or are they kind of the same?
I don't think my expectations have changed because I think he's as athletic as he was prior to injury. I think he's healthy. I think that he makes the game at times harder than what it actually is because he can make an easy play and sometimes he over dribbles it or whatever and tries to split two defenders when he could have just kicked it early, whatever. But I think that'll come with time and with reps. So I'm pleased with him, but I do think that he can make the game easier. He's so fast. Play to your speed, play to ball movement, play to other guys being able to force bad closeouts, and then you drive the closeouts or shoot it. So many things, but a lot of times he's trying to create that all on his own without trusting the ball movement and that kind of stuff. So he's going to have a good year, though.
I kind of going into that a little bit. Obviously, McDonald's All-Americans are not the end-all be-all of like what a player can be, but what are your expectations for him as a Jayhawk, as his career? Like, do you see him as a guy that can play in the NBA, or is a guy that is still kind of unknown of what he can develop into?
I think it's that's kind of a NBA. I mean, can he play there and get there? Absolutely. He's got to tighten a lot of things up, though. But athletically and strength and body and all those things, absolutely he can get there. But there's a lot of guys that can get there. He's got to improve in all facets to put him in the best position to have a career at that level, which can happen. There's no doubt about that. But he's, I know you guys covered it 2 years ago. He's very young in the game, and setting out last year didn't help that situation. So being hurt, so he's still got a lot of things he can improve on. But I could see when the light comes on, it could shine bright. I think he's still thinking because I've got his head a little screwed up because he's thinking instead of playing, and because he cares and he wants to do what we want him to do. But on the flip side, he's got to get to the point where he's comfortable and confident within what we're telling him to still be able to go out and be the athlete and play to his own skill set. And right now he's probably not quite there yet, but he'll get there. He's just young, guys. He's young.
Could you tell that Darren, the competitor, really wanted to be out there playing? And is there any positive that he got to watch one game from the bench and watch what you want and what the team?
Well, I don't know if there's positives. I actually liked it better when he was out there. I think the thing about it is there's a lot of things. He played 14 minutes the other night against Louisville and had 24 points, but he didn't really play after that because of the cramping and the tightness and that kind of stuff. So to me, that's good that we can figure out how to address it, and then him take it serious in addressing it. Because, that could be the same way Monday, it could be the same way next Friday, it could be the same way moving forward. But let's nip it in the bud now, which we're going to. So I think that's a good thing. Is he a competitor? Yes, he's a competitor. I do think that the fact that we saw the second half last against Louisville, which I thought was excellent, in a time where he couldn't really help us because he couldn't move in the few minutes he played in the second half, but he still tried to play the same way, not being able to move, which is a formula for not success, i.e., a couple of turnovers, that kind of stuff. There's point in time when things are going your way and when things aren't. How do you pick your spots better? So I think that could have been a good example for him in the second half when things weren't right to pick his spots more, i.e., you got 4 fouls with 10 minutes left. You can't play the same way as if you have 2 fouls with 10 minutes left. He's got to adjust to that, and I think he can do a better job of that. But him playing 14 minutes of healthy ball isn't enough for this team to win big games. He needs to be out there, 30 plus.
Cure the problem.
Yeah.
Any special way?
Yeah. We're working on it right now. So we got some potion that we're going to use that should take care of everything.
Any red shirt updates?
No, nothing as of now. But I guess I need to make a decision pretty soon. But nothing as of now.
Finally, you compared physically Melvin to Tyshawn, which seems perfect. What about Tiller? A lot of people are wondering who he reminds you of.
Well, you're on Twitter way too much. I hadn't thought of. When I think of our guys, I don't think about who they remind me of. But Tyshawn and Melvin, how could you not? They look just alike. I mean, they got the same body, they got the same height, they the same personality, similar speed. Although he's not as fast as Tyshawn. Tyshawn practiced with us one day, and Tyshawn's coming off a Achilles tear. He practiced with us one day, and Melvin said, "Oh my God, is he fast?" I said, "Mel, he's 38 years old. He just had an Achilles tear last year." He's like going, "No way." I said, "If you think he's fast now, what about, 15 years ago?" But Melvin is fast, and he plays with personality. But with Bryson, I don't know. Who's a power forward we had? Is he close to Markeith? Could that be a comparison? Because they handle and do a lot of things similar. Markeith's a better scorer in some ways, but I think Bryson is, got a lot of talent. There's no doubt about that.
That's Bill Self previewing the Green Bay game tonight at 7 o'clock. Coverage will start on Sports Radio 810 WHB at 5:30 with the Crimson and Blue Show. After this, we're going to preview that game, the season opener, 25-26 KU basketball. Be right back on Rock Chalk Sports, ESPN Kansas City, KansasNation.com. Hey, KansasNation.com to, get your fill on all things KU. Make sure you check us out. We've got some really cool new episodes up there now as of this weekend. Haney and the Hawks featuring Kerry Meyer, Orange Bowl champion, best receiver, arguably, of all time in KU history. It's either him or Briscoe, right? Certainly, statistically, it's those guys. So Kerry Meyer had a conversation with Brian Haney in the latest episode of Haney and the Hawks. Also, a new episode on Timeout with Tyshawn Taylor. So,
and Rock.
So many, and Rock. Yes, hosted by Rock. So many great options for KU coverage for all KU fans out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out KansasNation.com. Also, check us out on YouTube. Just look up Kansas Nation. All of our episodes are going to be up there. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. KansasNation.com is the place to go to get all of your fix for literally everything. I live tweet all the games on our Twitter at the Kansas Nation, Facebook as well. Going to be uploading a ton of different pictures, and I'll keep you guys up to date all throughout the game against Green Bay tonight. But check out KansasNation.com because really cool stuff going on that website.
Follow us on your socials as well. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch. What am I forgetting? YouTube.
MySpace.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Give us a subscription.
LinkedIn.
It means a lot. Zanga. Yeah. MySpace. MySpace and Zanga. Yeah. All right. KU and Green Bay. Their mascot, as you know.
The Phoenix.
The Phoenix.
Yes.
Trivia time. What's the other D1 school? His mascot is the Phoenix.
Is it the University of Phoenix?
No, the Phoenix.
No, wait,
Phoenix,
hold on,
Phoenix.
hold on. No, I can get this. The other Division I school, do they have a Division? They don't have a Division I football program.
Correct.
Do they have a football program at all?
Yeah, I will check. Yes, right now they are 7th in the Colonial League.
Colonial League.
And they just lost to Maine. They were off this past week, and they lost to Maine 35-14 their last time out.
You know what? I give up. Who is it?
Elon. The Elon Phoenix,
Oh,
as
yeah,
well
they
as
do
the
have a
Green
football
Bay
team, yeah.
Phoenix. Yeah, how
I'm
about
pretty sure
that?
they are D1.
The head
Or
coach,
FCS at least.
FCS, yeah. Head coach of Green Bay basketball is Doug Gottlieb. He led them.
Wait. Doug Gottlieb. So he shares the same name with the Fox radio
Yeah,
host?
same name. Yeah, totally different guy.
Totally different guy. Okay,
4 and
because
28.
I would get, like, how would you be able to manage both of those
It's
jobs
strange,
at the same
man.
time?
I mean, you feel free to take this whoever you'd like. I know we've talked about it on the show before, but yes, it is strange. He is a radio personality and also a head coach. It's very, very odd.
I won't go too hard on Doug Gottlieb today, but here is the question: is if you were handed the reins to a Division I basketball program, do you think you could win more than 4 games?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I don't think so, but it would be close.
Even if you had a guy who
I think that'd
averaged
be a fair
26
over-under.
points a game.
Yeah, because a lot of times those guys who are volume guys are on bad teams.
Sure, that's fair.
So
okay, all right.
I don't know, but yeah, it wasn't very good. 4 and 28, 2 and 18 last year for Green Bay, and they returned one good player.
Yes.
And like everybody else, a lot of roster overhaul in the offseason.
Yeah, so Anthony Roy, who averaged damn near 26 points per game last year, he is now at Oklahoma State because he probably had an in with Doug Gottlieb. But good for him for going to a Power 4 school. We're going to see him, later in the conference play. Good to see how his game translates. Green Bay, they went 1-1 in their exhibitions, at least from my research that I've done. They lost to Bradley on Thursday, I believe, or a couple Thursdays ago, 83-78. They had kind of a second half comeback, but still wasn't able to finish it off, and then they beat the St. Norbert Green Knights.
How about that? The Green Knights. I can't. Okay, so is this like a night, like UCF night, or is it like a green night outside?
No, KNIGHT.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Green Knights. So they're like a knight, but they're painted green, I guess.
Yes.
Is the best way to do it. But they beat them
The
75 to
St.
48.
Norbert Green Knights.
I believe they're NAIA or Division II, one of the
Division
two.
3.
Division
So
III.
you were close.
Okay,
They are
good for them.
from DePere, Wisconsin.
Good for them.
Yeah.
But so they have a couple of guys who are returning from last year's squad. Marcus Hall is probably their best player that they have. Returning from last year, averaged 33.7 minutes per game, averaged 14 points per game from last year. He's going to be their bell cow, the guy who is their most consistent scorer. Other than that, you got CJ O'Hara, who came off the bench last year. I believe he's going to be finding himself in a starting role this year. Only 12.5 minutes per game last year. Wound up averaging 4 points per game. So this team is not very good, coming off a terrible season. Obviously, they won 4 games from last year, so not exactly fantastic. This is gonna be the first time that Green Bay and Kansas have ever gone to battle, so it's gonna be interesting. But I'm looking at this game. I continue to ask our guests this question because I personally believe this is what it is. I think he's also looking at this, Bill Self, as an evaluation game, right? He's looking at this as like hey, these guys, they're not very good, so we're going to continue to stretch out this rotation to get Palumbia minutes and confidence, to get El Marco and Jamari and Samis Calderon minutes to get them comfortable in a college game that they haven't played in a while, right? Jamari and El Marco both haven't played in a year. Samis Calderon's brand new. Palumbia, obviously a 21-year-old freshman, so hasn't played at the collegiate level at all. So expect to see a lot of these rotational piece guys. Darren Peterson, as we know, is going to be good to go, right? He's been dealing with either cramps or a stomach bug, or they've been kind of, a little clandestine about that, if you will, of just like they don't really know what's going on. I don't know if they're keeping it a secret or not, or whatever it may be. So DP should be good to go. I wouldn't expect to see a lot from DP just because I would imagine if he's still nursing something, whether it be cramps, whether it be a stomach bug, they're probably going to limit his minutes to at least a half, you would think, to kind of keep him good to go for the North Carolina game. But, obviously expect DP to have a big game as well. And I don't expect him to hit 6 threes like he did against Louisville, but still expect him to be, the guy who the ball continues to go through.
Yeah, this game's going to be about KU. It's just one of those games on the schedule. I mean, this is a Green Bay
Yeah.
program that we said won 4 games. If KU goes out and plays well, then they're going to start 1-0 before they head to Chapel Hill on Friday. And I think it would be great, of course, to see Peterson out there, and hopefully he plays, if I had a hope, 20 to 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Get a sweat on. KU gets some separation, and then we get more time of seeing what this KU offense in particular looks like without him.
Yeah.
Because that's what we saw against Fort Hays State, and it was meh, right?
It was.
Melvin Council was good. He had the juice. He had the energy. Not always easy to have against Fort Hays State, but he seems like the guy that night in, night out, he's going to have that. But we got to see some of these other rotations. And like you said, this is a good opportunity for Kansas to do that because, as Coach said with Greg Gurley post-game, it's time to get down to business now officially.
So 2 things for this game. The biggest thing that I want to see is I want to see Rosario take over a game. This is going to be one of his last chances to be able to do that. Maybe Texas A&M Corpus Christi, right? Whenever they come into town. Rosario has got to get some momentum on his side because he had all this hype coming in. Everyone's saying, oh, he's on this, rocket-like trajectory of talent and hustle, and he's going to be the guy. And we haven't seen it yet in a game. And granted, there are 2 exhibition games, and it's going to take some time. He's still young. He's still getting his feet under him. He's a young buck. I want to see him take over this game late. I want to see him, whenever DP gets out, I want to see Rosario out on the court, taking over a game, driving to the basket, getting offensive rebounds, getting defensive rebounds, facilitating the ball. I want to see that. Number 2, start the shorts arm backwards chant. That is what I want to see most of this game. That's a key to the game.
I want the rock chalk chant to be started.
Also,
and again, you and I have talked about this before. I think a lot of it falls on the cheer and the spirit squad, particularly if you have freshmen in. When KU's got separation, we don't need to be waving our hands trying to get a missed free throw when we're up by 30 or whatever the score is. You have to start the rock chalk chant. It's the best thing in sports. It is the greatest chant in all of sports. We've had presidents say that in the past, all right? We need to not forget about it, all right? And we'll wave the wheat and all that'll be good. But yeah, KU should win comfortably over Green Bay tonight, but hopefully an entertaining game no matter what. Big thanks to Elijah Schmidt running the operations today in our Kansas Nation studios. And tomorrow, of course, we'll break down this game. We're going to have all sorts of coverage of KU football in advance of a big weekend for them as well as they head to Arizona looking for that 6th win and bowl eligibility. For Dan Courtwright, I'm Sean Kellerman saying we'll catch you tomorrow from 4 to 6 on Rock Chalk Sports, ESPN Kansas City, KansasNation.com.